and then we'll officially start. All right, so I'm Troy Haynes from I Am Connected. I'm very pleased, and it's my privilege to be able to share this with you today, a 5-day consciousness hacking challenge, 5 days to free your mind. So it's going to be, like I mentioned, quite a full day. We've got an hour. I'm going to do my best to make sure that we finish on time, to respect your time. So please, if you've got any questions, do pop them in the chat. But for the most part, we'll keep everyone on mute unless we invite you out. But please do, yeah, make comments and ask questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to loop back to them. Yeah, this is set to be an amazing transformational 5 days. So my goal over the course of the next 5 days is one, to help establish a daily meditation practice. And unless we're taking the time each day to observe our thoughts and our emotions, then fundamentally we're living in our conditioned experience. And so without a daily meditation practice, and I know it can be challenging. Some of us on this, listening to this, some of us live, already have a daily meditation practice. That's an opportunity to go deeper into that. For those that haven't, this is an opportunity to use this group, to use this crew to embed a practice. And so I'll share more about the platform and how that as a community we can do this. So by having a daily meditation practice, we're taking the time each day to tune in. And I'll share more about my story as we go through in a few moments, but we can't really truly know ourselves fully when we're living in our conditioned experience. And it's not until we take the time each day to tune in, to create the space, that we get to hear that internal voice, that intuition, that instinct, that part of you that already knows who you are and why you're here. And so one of my goals is for you to have the foundations for a daily meditation practice at the end of this program. And we're going to look at sleep as well. Like, sleep can be overlooked a lot in our society, but it again forms the foundation for well-being and performance. And so getting clear on like what is your sleep goals, because having effective sleep is just like the beginning. And what we see in sleep is that we can kid ourselves about how well we're doing in our waking state, but when we go to sleep each night, some of the dysfunctions that we have can come to light. And so, yeah, we'll look at sleep, what key well-being metrics that we can look at in terms of supporting your sleep goals. And beyond just getting effective sleep, there's the opportunity to start exploring the altered states there, dreams, lucid dreams, the hypnagogic state. There's so much potential within that dreamscape. It's like its own virtual reality. For the most part, we ignore. But for as a foundation, it's like getting clear on what are your sleep goals. And we'll establish a new way of relating with our thoughts and emotions. As we sit and we start observing our thoughts and emotions, we realize that we aren't essentially those thoughts and emotions, because we're able to sit and watch them. And so as an active meditation throughout the day, we'll start the foundations of creating a habit where we're looking at our thoughts and emotions in a completely new way that enables us to be more whole, be more of that observer, be more of ourselves without contracting into our conditioned experience. It's really powerful. And day 3 and day 4, we'll look at these. We'll look at how we all have unresolved emotional wounds that we carry, which for the most part form the foundation of our emotional and our thought response that we have throughout the day. So we'll see through the platform around day 3 how we start tracking these and work towards healing these unresolved emotional wounds that we all have. one of the things that I learned from a mentor some time back is when asking, like, how do I get more out of my experience? How do I become more biohacking, consciousness hacking? We identify as like taking the handbrakes off. But fundamentally, we already have a lot of our potential inside us, but it's our unresolved emotional wounds that are holding us back from becoming what we essentially are here to become. In that, we realize that it's being more of us, just being more authentically, completely us. We're unique in this world. We're here with our own uniqueness. And it's not something that we're taught a lot at school, is like, how do we do be us? And I'm not talking about like a personality profiling test. I'm talking about to authentically know who you are and be more of that. Because in being more of that, that is our path to God. That is our path to realizing that connection to the energy more completely. So we will explore that throughout, share how technology can help support us. Technology is an extension of our consciousness. It can help us to evolve. And so it's not necessarily the enemy. It can also be used in negative ways. So here we're looking at, well, how does technology help to support us to become? And along the way, you're going to meet a whole new community of other consciousness hackers who are here to becoming what we can become individually, ourselves, our uniqueness, realizing that seed of potential within. How does all this sound? Over the next 5 days, this is what the journey that we've signed up for, that we're going on. Give us some love in the chat if that sounds cool. If you've got any questions, again, yeah, pop them in there as well. What makes this different? We have built a custom, we call it a consciousness hacking platform that helps to support this, that help bring it together, that helps create community, that helps give you what you need when you need it. It's a reflection point. It's also, your key data, but it's also data that you can share with your coach. And so we've built I Am Connected as a custom platform to help support this journey. The invitation, though, is like to be as present here as you can. Like I said, technology is an extension of our consciousness. We can use it for good, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But if you can, do your best to be as present as you can on these sessions, and I'll give my best to you in doing that as well, giving each other our attention. Do your best to show up. Cheryl, we're live for an hour a day, so sessions run typically for an hour. I'm going to do my best to finish on time for the next 5 days. And if you can't make a day, please do your best to catch the recording. The recordings will be sent through, the replays will be sent through at the end of each day. If you stay to the end, day 5, we've got a very special giveaway. And it's something that involves wearable tech. I'd love to get this, so it's a gift. So so do your best to play full out. We've got the chat environment, the journey environment that you've seen. As we go through, support, participate, and then we've got this really incredible gift that we're going to give away on day 5. So a little bit about me, like where all this started, just for context for you. Like for me, I grew up in a small country town. I'm a highly sensitive person. Without effective caregivers to support me to nurture that sensitivity, I managed it the best way I knew how. And pretty much that was just pushing against it. That was resisting what I was feeling. But in resisting feeling, that pushed me up into my head. And then being in my head just made me think more. And so I'd try to think my way to solve problems. But fundamentally, that just increased overwhelmed with feelings, overwhelmed with thinking, created stress, anxiety. And for the most part, I used drugs and alcohol to try to help mitigate that. But it was really leading me towards high levels of depression. And but I realized that wasn't the way. And so I started learning as much as I could. I'm not a great reader, but I love audiobooks, and since then I've consumed hundreds and hundreds of audiobooks, attended courses, retreats. And what a lot of these were pointing to is meditation as a tool that could help. And so I started meditating. I was really quite bad at it initially, but like most people, but I got better. And in that, the more I sat, the more I was able to get space from the thought stream, the emotional triggers that would pull me into suffering. And what I realized is that sitting outside of that meant that, was I that narrative or was I something else? And the more I sat in the stillness, the more I was able to tune into a greater sense of knowing of who I actually was and why I was here, and that I wasn't this conviction story that I was led to believe that I was. But at that point, the more time I sat in the stillness, I realized that I'd created my life to that point as reactive to that narrative. And I wasn't where I was supposed to be. I was in a relationship. I loved the person that I was with, but I wasn't in love. We had a 5-year-old child. I had a business that I didn't want to be in. I had a mortgage, and I was trapped by my life circumstances. I'm not sure if anyone here can relate to that experience. And the more I sat in meditation, the more I realized I needed to move. Otherwise, my suffering would continue. And so piece by piece, I left that relationship, and it was hard. It was really challenging. I eventually sold that business. And that enabled me to, I got to the point where I was then, single, I had money in the bank. I became debt free, and I was able to then work on what was considered my life purpose. I'm connected. And this is back in 2010. And I'm connected. We were building a platform to help elevate human consciousness. But what I realized is over time, my money was burning through, and I realized that I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't essentially know how to turn my idea into reality. I was like, why isn't this working? I'm living my purpose, but it's not actually working. And so I started looking around the world at where ideas were flourishing. How do you turn an idea into reality? I looked at places like Silicon Valley. And you see that they have an ecosystem that supports entrepreneurs and innovators to cultivate ideas. I couldn't move to Silicon Valley. I was 50% carer for my son. And so I looked around my region where I was, which was Cairns, Far North Queensland at the time. And I saw that there wasn't an ecosystem. Where were the entrepreneurs? Where were the investors? Where were the key service providers? They weren't anywhere. And so I realized to support me and I Am Connected, I needed to build that ecosystem. And so we started doing that. We created a co-working space with event spaces and meeting rooms. We started running programs, and it went well. In time, we had the Australian Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, came and visited to recognise the work that we were doing. We had state premiers, we had treasurers of different states. Other regions around Australia were inviting us to mentor them about how to build their ecosystems in their regions. But all the while, along the way, I had to put down I Am Connected because I needed to focus. And this was like a couple of years in. I worked on this ecosystem development for about a decade. And in the last, about 3-4 years ago, I was introduced to transformative technologies, which is it was actually through a book I read. I was introduced to Stealing Fire. I'm not sure. Has anyone read the book Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheal? It's a
Yes,
really cool
I have.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. It's an amazing book. Check it out. I started to reach out to some of the people that were mentioned in there, Mikey Siegel being one of them, who founded Consciousness Hacking, and we were having conversations, and he connected me to Nicole Bradford. Nicole was looking for somebody to support the development of the Australian ecosystem for transformative technologies. And transformative technologies is a movement out of San Francisco that supports entrepreneurs and innovators to build human-centered technologies for emotional well-being and human thriving. Their vision is to elevate human consciousness, 1 billion people by 2030 using technology. And for me, this was the coming together of my two worlds, startup space and consciousness space. And they shared the same vision as me. And I'm like, I want that as well. I was fortunate enough to get a grant from the federal government, $50,000 to go over and spend a month in the Transformative Technology Lab in San Francisco, spending time with Nicole and the other founders of the movement, immersed in the technology, and then come back to Australia and run a series of programs for Australian-based entrepreneurs. And so I did that for a couple of years, but that was in June in 2019, but it was in November in 2019, going back for the Transformative Technology Conference. That it was at a dinner with Nicole and the team. Post-conference, we were celebrating the conference and just chatting around what we're going to take away from it. And it was at that point, November 2019, that I shared with everybody there that I wanted to pick I Am Connected back up and start building it again. And so that's what we've been doing. And so since then, it's obviously different than it was in 2010, but for the last 3 years, we've been building out this platform, a consciousness hacking platform, which is infused with a lot of the key fundamentals that consciousness hacking and transformative technology, the ethos of what they share and what they are. For example, paradigm shifting tools, pattern breaking tools, and capacity building tools. And so we built these into the platform. I'm going to share those with you over the next 5 days. So that's the journey that we've been on. And I'm stoked to have you here now participating in this. You know, our mission, our collective mission, is to help elevate our consciousness and really connect people to who they are. And we see a key step of that is building a new relationship with the narrative that's in our psyche. And now more than ever, this is important because technology is evolving. We're all unique and we're all beautiful. We all have a seed of potential within, but for the most part, we've not been taught how to access that. And as technology continues to evolve, it's going to take away a lot of the fundamental jobs and roles that people do. And if we have our identity connected to our narrative, then we're going to suffer more than we already are. And we look at things like Chat GPT. We've probably all heard of that. You know, it's the fastest growing application of all time. Spotify, 150 days it took to get to 1 million users. Instagram took 75 days to get to 1 million users. Chat GPT, have you guessed how many days it took to get to 1 million users for it? Which is, for those that aren't familiar, it's an AI application that enables us to create content, create imagery. It's founded by OpenAI. It only took 5 days. Thanks, Benny. Yeah, 5 days it took to get to 1 million users. So it's the fastest growing adoption by consumers. And AI has been used for years and years and years as a B2B application, but now this is one of the first applications of B2C, and we see the adoption is crazy. So it's going to shift and change things. So in doing this work that we're doing, there's no guarantees. We need to do the work. I can't do your meditation for you, but we're here to support. So we've built this infrastructure. And now, like I said, our vision is our mission, and the people that we've had using the platform and participating in the programs are having this shift. It's profound how quick we can do this, really reconnecting people to a sense of who they are, away from learning how to relate to the narrative in a completely new way. I want to just take a moment to show you around the platform. and so that you can get the best from it. So you'll see here, like this is your dashboard. You all have a dashboard. Some of you will have some tech connected. So we do integrate some key wearable technologies, a growing number at the moment. If you've got an Oura Ring, we can connect the data. If you've got a Fitbit, we can connect the data. And so we can track movement. And we'll talk more about these over the next coming days. We can track sleep and keep sleep metrics. Meditation, I'll explain this in more detail today. It's just sort of an overview of your dashboard. We track recovery metrics. We can create habits. We'll talk about that more on day 4 and day 5. Track dreams, and we'll look at that on day 2. Daily log is really powerful. We'll drop more on that and more on day 3. This is like an interoceptive look at what code that you're running, and you're able to share that then with a coach or a support person. Because sometimes we can't see the patterns that we're stuck in because we're in it. We're so close to it. So it's in this that we're able to be supported on our interoceptively. Like as we look interoceptively day to day, we're able to see where we're sticking ourselves. And so within something that we may need to be aware of, I'm aware that there may be a number of different notifications coming through. If you want to suspend the notifications that come through, just go into your profile, which is accessible through the menu. Go down to that and then just change it from, essentially toggle this off, and then I'll turn it off and click update. It's that simple. So meditation, this is a key part that I want you to be familiar with, because as part of the challenge, and it is a challenge, but it's to be logging your meditations each day. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. I sent through, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but a video guide of how to actually set up shortcuts on your phone. This is a web-based application. It's not actually an app just yet, but you can set up web shortcuts on your phone. And so this is a timer. And so meditate you just put the time in there, 50 minutes, and press play, and it'll count down. So it'll play a sound when you begin, and it'll play the sound at the end, and that'll then add to your dashboard. So that's one way that you can do it. Another way is there's a program, like a meditation, that we'll do at the end, that you can find the recordings for that, or you can actually do those meditations ongoing throughout the week. And essentially by going into the Becoming Exponential meditation, and then first one we're going to do today is release tension. It's a really powerful intervention in its own right. And by pressing play and listening to that, that will also add automatically to your dashboard. If you want to meditate doing another type of meditation, essentially you can log it manually as well. You can just set the time here, whatever time you did, and you can manually add it. So that's 3 ways. And then also with a Muse meditation device, if you have a Muse device, you can use this as well. That's another way. So this is like an EEG device. It sits on your head and measures brain frequency, particularly alpha and beta. And I'll talk more about what that is in a moment. Essentially sits on your head. And so if you've got one of these or you're interested in getting one, let us know. We can hook you up, and then I'll connect the data to IM Connected, and it'll pull through automatically. And so essentially, these are a number of different ways that you can meditate. For me, I just use the timing here. But if you've got your own specific meditation that you like doing, you can manually add it. The value is here that then we're participating as part of a community, and we're supporting each other to build a habit around meditation, habit around observing the mind. Or you can do the program here, and I'm going to guide us through this program over the next 5 days. Any questions on that? This is, I guess, the key that I want you to take away from today is starting to do your meditation practice? Nope. All right. If anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me, info@iamconnected.com. And then from there, you'll see we have a co-opetition board here, and we call it a co-opetition because it's not necessarily a competition, but it's supporting each other in a positive way. And so, with have a look around the platform within the challenge arena. This is our challenge arena. Please feel free to ask questions, make comments. If they're more technical questions, you're better off emailing me, info@iamconnected.com, if it's something not happening with the platform. But from here, we see people that have registered for the program, and this is an opportunity for us to support each other. This clicks through to the historic 6-week overview of our data, which becomes a beautiful way to reflect on progress, what's working, what's not. You can see this last week I've had a lot of activity on, so my sleep score, readiness score is down, and we'll talk more about those things tomorrow, compared to week on week. So we can sort of see when we get out of balance, what takes us out of balance. But for today, we're just more focused on meditation side of things. We'll talk more about these as we go through. Any questions before I continue? I just want to acknowledge our VIPs as well. For those people that have registered for the VIP, they'll catch up one-on-one with myself throughout the program. And I'll be supporting you through your daily log, which we'll talk more about in the coming days. So just acknowledging you guys. Essentially, the journey that we're going on is this exploration of who we are. Meditation is a foundation to learn how to relate to the mind. And so exploring this, like, who are you? Part of that, though, is healing our unresolved emotional wounds. Sorry, Katia, do I always recommend meditating for an hour? I've found myself doing 30 minutes morning and at night, and I've told myself an hour is too long. But I can definitely create more space for. Honestly, I feel like an hour is a sweet spot. I understand that seems like impossible for a lot of people early on, and so I recommend, like, it's all or something. There's a saying, all or nothing, but I feel like all or something is better than all or nothing, because just sitting for 5 minutes is better than nothing. Sitting for an hour is better than 30 minutes. And it is then, like, I've found myself doing 30. I told myself, but is it you? Is it your authentic self that's actually saying that? Or is it just the mind saying, no, I can't do that? And so it's in that point where we can then observe that, or what is that that's actually saying that. And so we'll talk more about that in day 3, the internal narrative and building a relationship with our thoughts, because I'd like to suggest that, or in my experience, the mind doesn't want to give up control. Like, it doesn't want to let go of, it's trying to keep you safe. Its role is to keep you safe, but essentially what kept us safe when we were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is now in the way. And so what we're learning to do here is observe those parts of ourselves that have become dysfunctional, and then work towards healing them. And so, yes, if you consider now, I think there's tremendous benefit. In my experience, we'll sit and we'll try to hold our attention still, and then we get drawn into a story, and then we gently bring it back, and then we get drawn into another story, and we gently bring it back. And there's the ongoing pendulation. It's what meditation is initially, of focusing your attention, whether it's on your breath or mantra or whatever type of meditation that you're doing, or even the guided recording, the guided meditation that you might be listening to. Then you'll get drawn into a story, and then so gently bringing it back, and then getting drawn into a story again. It's that pendulation. Like it can take, like if you do that for 20 minutes, some people are saying like meditation is really hard, except for 20 minutes, and it feels like, I'm going crazy because there's that ongoing pendulation. And the thing is, like the mind will always give up if you sit for long enough. And so if you sit for 20 minutes, you've done a lot of the heavy lifting. If you sit for 30 minutes, you've done a lot of that heavy lifting. And around 40 minutes, it's like the first 30 minutes, we're in the mind and we're just doing the pendulation. The next 15 minutes, typically we're able to hold our attention a lot better. In the last 15 minutes, it's like we get meditated, we're connected to the energy. This is like a general rule. And so it's like the ease of just being still is increased. And it's in that we tune into a greater sense of, instinct, intuition, knowing. So if you'd like to take the challenge throughout the program, yes, I encourage you to sit for an hour a day and see what happens and report back. If you've only got 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. I'd like to encourage you to do it at least a minimum of 20 minutes though. So it is all about like learning how to be more in the present moment, like in that pendulation. In meditation, you get drawn into a story, and then you realize, oh, I was in thought. That's a beautiful thing to realize that, and then you bring your attention back. In this moment, you're in the present moment. And then the more we practice this, when we're doing a seated practice, the more we're able to realize throughout the day when we're actually lost in thought. The more we become aware of where we're holding unresolved emotional wounds, and we'll talk more about this on day 3, and then work towards healing, the less we're then contracted into our story, and the more we're able to be in the present moment. And in that present moment, connected to our higher self, and also connected to that sense of like who we are and why we're here, that seed of potential that we all have within. And so we're exploring this over the next 5 days around 3 core pillars. One is capacity building. Like there's some fundamental tools that we can do to build capacity. For example, meditation is one of those tools, breath work, yoga, even lucid dreaming training. There's a whole range of different tools that you can do to build your capacity to be more of who you are. Another pillar is pattern breaking. We get caught in our conditioned experience, our conditioned code. And unless we, like the brain is neuroplastic, but unless we consciously make the effort to change what's the code we're running, then we're essentially playing out the code that was installed. And it's a lot of our programming happens between 0 and 5. And so it's our caregivers that we've learned a lot of who we are from them. So unless we change that consciously, then we live in that. And then paradigm shifting experiences or paradigm shifting tools is the 3rd key pillar that we look at. It's really powerful. Like it's easy for us to be caught in our narrative, caught in our beliefs, and our beliefs filter our reality. And so we can only see what we can see then. And so we explore paradigm shifting tools that help us to break free of our narrative, break free or shift out the beliefs that don't support. And essentially, beliefs create a limitation for what we can truly see and experience. And so we talk more about those as we go through as well. So meditation is what we're going to drop in on today. We'll do sleep and recovery tomorrow. We'll look at patterns on Wednesday, or depending where you are in the world, for day 3. And then we're not so much going to look at forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big one. We do it as part of our Becoming Exponential program. We're going to look back more on healing, like how do we actually process some of these contractions. So we'll drop back and do day 4 on healing. And then day 5, we'll look at beliefs and habits. And so this is the model of the journey that we're going through over the next 5 days. Exploring this, like, who are you and why are you here? Like, this is until we answer that question, we're kind of living in a reality that doesn't make sense. When you answer this question, things drop in. and exploring this, connecting to this, like at the heart of it is like, I am, like, who are you? I am. And we'll be probing around that in the next 5 days, like, who are you and why are you here? And so right now we'll look at capacity building. We'll drop in on meditation in a little bit more detail. And so exploring like meditation from the lens of altered states as well. This is a map that we've created. And if we consider the different brainwave states, when we look at altered states, I'm going to talk through those. So the problem is in modern society, most people are, and the way that we utilize technology, it forces us into this high beta brainwave state. And beta is like the state we're in when we can multitask, and there's a lot of pressure on us to multitask. But when we multitask, our attention gets fractionated. And when our attention's fractionated, we start accumulating stress and anxiety. And then our ability to be able to focus and get work done diminishes. So we have low output, low quality of work. And then we can just get caught in the mind. It's very much a mind-dominated state, a thinking state. And when you think about like phones and, social platforms and just like all of the distractions, all the things that are like popping up and beeping and ringing and pulling on our attention, it's easy for us to be in this high beta brainwave state. And it forms a lot of the dysfunction that we exist in, because you can't know who you are when you're in that reactive mind. You can't think your way to your purpose. You can't think your way to a greater sense of meaning. It needs to come to you through inspired thought. Then we look at alpha. Alpha is a slower brainwave state. It sits just outside of this. And this is where meditation becomes really powerful, because we learn through meditation that ongoing focus of your attention. It's like pulling the strings of your attention back so that you can focus it. Attention is our power. And so with alpha, we have a greater sense of flow. It's a single focus. You would have experienced this like watching a good movie where you're just engrossed in that movie. And you would have also experienced it when you're working, when you're just in the flow. And it's almost like life is creating through you. That's really, really powerful. It's interesting that we'll talk more about insight, but insight, the foundation for insight has its roots in alpha. So we'll be in this alpha state, and little bits of data will come together, and then we'll have a spike. It's actually called a gamma spike. I'll talk about gamma in a moment. But so alpha is really, really powerful. Spending time in nature is a really powerful way of accessing alpha, mitigating against distraction and interruption. So whatever you can do to turn off your pop-ups off your phone, turn off your notifications off your phone, have discipline around checking emails, teach people how to effectively communicate with you and connect with you so they're not internally interrupting you. There's things that we can do, and we explore that in our Becoming an Exponential program, to spend more time in alpha. Because we're seeing the sleep side as well. Like as we cycle out of our sleep, we cycle out of alpha. So we get this beautiful alpha flow. But the first thing you do in the morning is wake up and check your phone. Well, then you already started giving away your power. And so we can protect our alpha. And theta is a deepening of this. It's almost like an absence of mind. There's an internal stillness. And so it's in these alpha and theta states that you'll have a greater sense of connection to your intuition, your sense of knowing. And so spending time each day in meditation is getting out of this conditioned reality, this conditioned noise, and tuning in to ultimately who you are. You have that narrative, that identity that you have, it changes. It becomes more like the mind is fundamentally quiet in these states here. When I was learning around this, I thought it'd be so cool if there was this thing that you could go to and, you get drawn into alpha and theta. And it turns out there is. It's the planet Earth. The Earth's frequencies, or the Schumann frequency, is 7.83 hertz, which sits right between alpha and theta. And so we can see, like, these are actually frequencies that we can measure. And this is where things like the Muse, it measures beta and alpha, and it can tell you when you're in a beta state. And by playing an auditory sound, it plays rain. And then as you practice an intervention, whether it's breath work or you're focusing your attention, you learn how to then change your state, slow your brain waves. And then when you're in an alpha state, it plays like the sun coming out and birds chirping. And so this is a way to build that association. You definitely don't need a Muse meditation device to do that. You can meditate and you can feel the benefits. But like to Kadia's question before, the longer you sit, the deeper you're going to go in your meditation practice. Into delta is like a really slow wave, brain wave. And the longer you sit, the more quiet you get. And the more you tune into that which is beyond you, beyond that conditioned sense of self, the narrative. When I was learning around this, I thought it'd be so cool if there's a way to actually explore beyond this barrier of unconsciousness. Because at this point, the delta, our brain waves are really, really slow. And we experience it, we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but in our deep dreamless sleep, we go into this delta phase as well. And on the other side of that is, what's on the other side of that? One of the profound things about psychedelics and the psychedelics renaissance is that it helps to strip away a lot of this. Like when you go into a psychedelic experience, we've measured it with a similar EEG device, is that there's a high propensity of delta brain waves. And so it's like you're experiencing what's on the other side, unconsciousness. People that have near-death experiences report back of having like a spiritual experience, being in prayer, like priests that have really accomplished that prayer have been measured having a really low delta. So the more time you spend in meditation, the more you can connect to the supreme intelligence that is beyond our conditioned experience. And so we're looking at broadening the human experience beyond just living in your conditioned noise. And so meditating each day becomes this, it's almost like an essential thing to do, to connect in, to know who you are and to know what you're part of. And unless we take the time to do it each day, we're essentially living in a conditioned, living in the matrix, I guess, like living in a conditioned reality. We're a slave to the noise that's in our head. And what I'm saying to you is the more time you spend taking each day to tune in, the more you're able to just bask in the stillness, in the revelation of who and what you are. And you connect to that seed of potential that you have within. So the challenge here over the next 5 days is to be doing your practice each day, to be logging those practices so that we can support you, so we can support each other. And does anybody have any questions on any of that? So we're learning to regulate our waking state by slowing our brain waves. Meditation is a profound tool for doing that. It's not the only tool, but it's the one that we're focusing in on here right now as part of this challenge. And so meditation, for those that are already accomplished, great, keep going. You can deepen your practice. You can count guided meditation towards meditation. The opportunity, though, is to go deeper with the meditation that I'll share. Like for me, meditation, the guided meditation is good because it can help connect you to those states. The meditation that I'm going to share is designed. So we're going to do releasing tension. We're going to do releasing emotion. We're going to do right breathing. And then we'll start observing the mind. And so day 4, the first 3 days are essentially beautiful meditations in their own right, beautiful interventions in their own right. They'll help change your state, but they also help prepare you for meditation. There are people that suggest that you're not actually meditating until you get to, like I mentioned before, that 45th minute, when it's almost like you get meditated because you're in the stillness. You don't essentially start meditating until that point, uh, because until then you're in the mind. You're in the mind, and the mind's you're battling for your attention from the mind. So sure, by all means, do your guided meditations. But if you wanted to try this as another means to learn how to, my goal is to teach people how to meditate themselves and not necessarily need to rely on guided meditations. So the meditations that are recorded, it's more about the structure, learning the framework. Release tension, so we release tension. Then we focus on, all right, tune in. What am I feeling? And so we feel it, because most often we resist feeling the emotions that are there. And it's in that resistance they persist. And so we learn to bring our attention to, what am I feeling? It's energy and motion, and just feel it, just acknowledge it and feel it. So we'll do more of that tomorrow. Then day 3 is the breath is connected. It's we can influence our central nervous system via the breath. So we can shift our state from a sympathetic fight flight to a parasympathetic rest. And so it's like a pump. We can influence our biology with our breath. And so we can stack those. We'll stack those each day 1, day 2, day 3. And then day 4, we do those 3 things, but quicker. And then we get to the point where we then start using a mantra as a focal point. I'm holding my attention on this mantra. You get drawn into a story, and you hold your attention on the mantra, you get drawn into a story. So eventually, though, there comes a point, the mind, you'll be holding your attention on your mantra, and you'll see the mind trying to get your attention. And then all of a sudden you see the mind, and it's like, oh, wow, I'm outside it. And you're not those thoughts, and you're not the emotions. And so that's the practice, is to get to that point where you're able to be outside. And this is just one, like, I'm not saying this is the only meditation practice. Meditation is so multifaceted. This is just a practice, like a tool that I'm going to want to impart on you to have in your tool belt, because it's profound to be able to get to the point each day where you're outside the mind and you're connected to the supreme intelligence that is all around us, that is in us, that is us. And it's in that we realize that you're everything. And being everything, it's like, at the same time, you realize the gift is actually being separate. We actually have the ability to be in this separate form. Why is this separate form here? It's to know itself completely. And so that's why we're here, is like, who are you uniquely and completely? And it's in that we flip back around, and we realize that it's the way to experience God. So setting up a sanctuary is a really great place to start. Ideally, I suggest doing your meditations in the morning. So that means having a morning routine. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But set up a time and a place where you can sit for as long as you intend to sit without being interrupted. And it doesn't necessarily have to have candles and incense. It can. For me, it's just a chair. You can sit cross-legged on the floor on a yoga mat, but again, you don't have to do that. Yeah, what else do I want to share about setting up a sanctuary? It's just somewhere where you can sit, ideally with your back upright, and just not be disturbed for as long as you plan on sitting. And if you can log that in the platform, whether you use the timer, whether you use the manual input, whether you listen to the recording within the course there, either of those are fine. And also, if you have a muse, you can use that as well. So releasing tension is the meditation that I wanted to do today. We've only got 5 minutes left, so we're just going to do a quick version of it. There's a 20-minute version that's in the platform. So I encourage you to have a play with that. That's in the meditation section, Becoming Exponential meditation course. Tune into it there. So the homework is like feel into and explore those altered states like that we talked about. This in our Becoming Exponential program, we go into it in depth around how to actually drop into those different states from alpha to theta, delta. But have a play with exploring altered states. They talk about it in Stealing Fire as well. It's a great book to reference. Set up a sanctuary and then doing at least 20-minute meditation at each day. It'd be great to try the releasing tension meditation that's in the platform, but if you don't have to. So in the 4 minutes that we have left, I just want to invite you to find yourself a comfortable position. And we're just going to do a quick releasing tension exercise. There's so much conscious and unconscious tension that we have that builds up throughout the day. And unless we take the time to consciously release it, we just carry it around. And so one of the ways that we can release this tension is to over-accentuate the tension in the body. And so I want to invite you just to bring some subtle tension into the body. So it's like tensing the body, the whole body, all at the same time, from the top of your head down to the tips of your toes. So it's like a pulling on of the skin on the body. So it's like not so that not to the point that you're uncomfortable, but just so that you can feel it like a subtle tension in the body. And so the toes might curl, you're pulling your calves on, perineum, your pelvic floor is pulled on all the way up through the back, the top of the head, your fingers are curled. We're just going to hold this for about 30 seconds. And so what we're doing here is we're over-accentuating the tension that we have in our body. And then in 20 seconds or so, we're going to then consciously release that tension. And in doing that, we break through the natural tension barrier that we have in our body, because we need some tension to be upright throughout the day. But here we work towards letting go of that. And so now let's slowly, little bit by little bit, over 30 seconds, we're just going to let go of the tension. And so the whole body all at the same time. It's like a slow unfolding. Little bit by little bit. An opening. It's like a butterfly opening its wings for the first time, or flower opening to meet the sun. And if you think you've let go completely, or you're open completely, see if you can let go even more completely now. So we're just letting go. Even more completely now. So now in the final minute, we imagine ourselves as if like a piece of chocolate in the sun, melting. Letting go even more completely now, as if like a piece of chocolate in the sun, melting across the surface that they're on. Really letting go. So this is a powerful intervention in its own right to shift your state from a beta into alpha that you can use throughout the day. It's by taking the time just to periodically let go of tension that you're carrying. And so as we prepare to go about our days now, wherever we are in the world, the invite you to just slowly reorientate yourself back to your waking state. And in your own time, you can open your eyes, moving slowly so not to spill the calm that you've created. Like I suggested, there is a 20-minute version, which goes through it in a little bit more detail. The invitation is for you to do that. It's part of the homework. Set up a sanctuary, which is just making a time. When are you going to meditate that you won't be disturbed? Ideally in the morning. If you leave it till the afternoon, then often a million things will come up, and which means you didn't get it done. Whereas if in the morning you can plan it so that you get it done. Is there any questions before we wrap for today? I appreciate you all. Thanks for taking the time to be here. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat, in our challenge arena, support each other. Like I said, there's a giveaway, a really cool giveaway at the end of this. So I look forward to journeying with you. Big love. See you tomorrow. Same time. Hey, Ruben. Hey, mate. I think there's a mix up with the times. I know the initial calendar said 6:30, but it was actually 5:30. So we've just wrapped up, man. You're not the
Oh,
only one.
sorry.
Zenik got it as well. I did my best to update the calendar, subsequent emails, but unfortunately, you guys didn't pick it up. I am sorry. It's
No.
completely my fault. But
Okay.
this is recorded. I'll actually stop the recording, and that way I don't have to apologize to. Oh, well.